Rookie Hunter is proudly brought to you by the Wild Sheep Foundation. If you'd like to support their mission to put and keep wild sheep on the mountain, you can go to wildsheepfoundation.org to become a member, renew your membership, or become a lifetime member. You can even get yourself some badass WSF merch. All of that can be found at wildsheepfoundation.org. And while you're there, check out Sheep Fever, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Foundation. Rookie Hunter continues to stay connected with Zoleo. If you're in the market for a new satellite communicator, go to zoleo.com, that's ZOLEO.com, and get yourself a satellite communicator you can rely on. And of course, we're partnered with our friends at North Arm Knives. Head over to northarmknives.com and get yourself a blade. All right, here's the episode that I've been hinting at. And after all of this, I feel like I've really hyped it up. And hopefully it's been worth the wait. And I actually just decided to re-record it. So shelters. We have somewhat limited experience with shelters, not fully limited. But we started off with the basics, which is how I want to start this, and just remind you guys that if you're new to this, and this episode, like all of the other field guide episodes, is for the new hunter, that you don't need to go out and spend $1,000 on a tent. The best place to look, I'll keep saying this, the best place to look is a marketplace or something similar. See if there's a used tent. There's so many people that, get into, let's say COVID, for example. I'm sure a shitload of people bought tents, went out a couple of times, decided it wasn't for them, and that thing's been sitting in their garage for the last few years, and they're eager to get rid of it. So check those places out and save yourself some cash wherever you can. But to give you an example of where we started, I had a mountain equipment co-op, Tarn 3-person tent. I think it was actually a 2-person tent, one of those situations where they call it a 3, but it's actually a 2. And that's the one I brought on the Wadafuka Trail. That's the one I brought for many of our first backcountry hunts. And Kelly would have to correct me on this one, but I believe he had a mech tent as well. And I know that we brought that one on some trips too. So nothing wrong with those. They are on the cheaper end of things. So they're going to get you out there for the first couple of hunts. So check things like that. Go for the cheaper tent, not the super cheap tent, as a way to get you out there and have some fun. The drawbacks on those ones, I noticed that over time they did start to leak if you were in like very wet situations. I remember being on Vancouver Island once, and water was kind of coming through the bottom of the tent, and that can be minimized by getting a footprint for it, but they just don't have the same water resistance and repellency as you're going to get with a higher end tent. So that's the drawback there. But if you're doing early season stuff and you live in a place like the Okanagan where you don't have to worry about a ton of rain, then something like that is going to be absolutely perfect. So from the mech tents, we graduated to, a few things. So Kelly and I ended up with the Hilleberg Nalo 2 and 3 GT. So we had 2 different tents, 2 different sizes, same model. And those tents have been awesome. The 3's probably got more use. It's great when Garrett and Kelly and I go on a trip together. But for our last hunt and my solo hunt with Earl, I used the 2. Perfect for that. It's cozy with 2 guys, but you've got the vestibule. You can keep all your gear out there, and you can sit out there if it's raining with the door open and still be able to do some glass. And so it's pretty versatile, great tent, but you're going to pay a lot more for those, obviously. And when we got the Hillebergs, Garrett, around the same time, bought the Kafaru teepee tent. Actually, I think he had that before us. because we brought that on our very first sheep hunt. And the nice thing about the teepee tent is that it can be ultralight and versatile depending on if you put the liner in, and there's no bottom in it. So we all brought our own little tarps to set up our sleeping bags and stuff on. So it's just open floor shelter, which you can actually do with the Hillebergs. We've never tried that before. But the beauty of that tent, especially for that trip, was having the fireplace and the ability to dry out our gear. You've got little lines throughout the top of the teepee that you can hang all your shit on. Really nice for just, drying out socks and, even sweaty gear or rain gear, just hanging it up. Super awesome. And then, of course, Garrett has the wall tent, which is the Cadillac of them all. And kind of just goes without saying, that thing's fucking badass. Pros and cons to all of these. And I'm going to kind of work my way through them and just give you some examples of uses we've had for all of them. It is important to note that there's kind of a few categories of tents, and there's, the freestanding versus non-freestanding, and there's also like semi-freestanding. Freestanding tents are the ones that are going to stand up on their own without stakes. So that's kind of like your MSR Hubba Hubba, which is a tent that I've been looking at. Stuff like that. All you need to do is put in the poles and that thing is standing up, which is pretty great for terrain where stakes aren't ideal. So if you're, camping out in a boulder field with a Hilleberg that requires staking, it's not going to be great to set up. Whereas a freestanding tent, you just pop in those poles and that thing is good to go. So as I just kind of mentioned, they're non-freestanding tents. They depend entirely on stakes and or guy lines to get their shape. There's all kinds of, examples of these, but our Hillebergs do fall into this category. They do have tent poles, but it's almost like an accordion. You have to at least put in stakes on the back two corners and the front two corners in order for it to stay upright. And then if you want proper ventilation, then you want to get the guy lines off the front and the back so you can get some airflow going through there. And if you're in intense wind situations like Kelly and I were, and like I was the couple of weeks prior to us going in, you're going to want to stake every corner and every guy line on that tent so that you don't have to worry about the thing blowing away on you. And then you get your semi-freestanding tents, which are like super lightweight stuff that you can use like with just like a tarp and a trekking pole. We've not attempted that method just yet, but I don't know. Maybe one day. I've seen guys doing it. It looks okay. You just feel very vulnerable and exposed to the elements, but I do like the idea of, packing one sill tarp and one trekking pole and bringing a couple of stakes and you're good to go. But if we're going around here, I'm always thinking about freaking rattlesnakes, man. And wide open like that, you might wake up with a fucking rattlesnake curled up underneath your sleeping bag. So I'm not doing that around here. Let's just put it that way. But maybe in some other situations that would work. So interesting concept. If any of you guys have, experienced that, I'd love to hear about your setups and how you've overcome some of the challenges associated with it. And then from there, we get into single wall versus double wall tents. Single wall tents, they have structure and weather protection in one layer, which means that they're going to be lighter and more compact. There's some of the cons. I don't know if this is fully true, but I was just looking up information and it says they are more likely to get condensation buildup. We've had that issue in all of our shelters, I would say. I do know that I felt like I had that issue more with the single wall mech tent that I had. There's only been a few situations where I have noticed quite a bit of condensation in the Hilleberg, and that was when Garrett and I were on our northern fly-in trip. And I don't really know why that was, but that's the only time I've really come across that. Maybe Garrett was just breathing too heavy, and I don't know. Um, but they're better for ultralight shelters. So that's what you get there. Double wall tents have a separate inner tent and then a rain fly, which is how our Nalo tents are. So you can actually detach the inner tent, which is cool, and just have the outer wall of the tent, which is going to be all of your rain protection and so forth. What I find with the double wall tent is that it actually holds in a lot more heat. It's actually crazy how warm that Hilleberg gets. And these are obviously just really good when it comes to multi-day hunts, having that separation. And I should mention, there's a gap between the outer wall and the inner wall. So there's no real risk of water coming through and touching that inner layer. So you're guaranteed pretty much to keep that thing dry no matter what kind of weather you're in. If you're in a single wall tent and it's just raining relentlessly, then chances are at some point it's going to start to come through. And I mentioned that with that mech tent that I had. It just, at a certain point, it just can't handle it anymore. Even if they're new and you've cleaned them and added weather protectant and rain repellent and everything to them, it's going to happen. And then you get your 3-season versus 4-season tent. Our Hillebergs are 4-season tents. Pretty straightforward thinking here. 3-season tent will get you through spring and fall conditions. They are going to be, again, a little bit more lightweight and breathable. Those Hillebergs, like I said, hold in the heat, but there's ways to get some pretty good airflow in there. But they're not going to hold up in snow and extreme wind and all that kind of shit. So the 4-season tent is the opposite of that. It's going to get you through snow. When Garrett and I did our northern trip, we ended up with snow, frost, rain, absolutely everything in that tent. So it's built for all of that stuff. And it's nice to have a tent that, is kind of going to get you through every situation you're going to be in, rather than, spending a decent amount of money and then wishing you spent that extra, little bit more to get that 4 seasons tent that's going to, get you through a northern hunt. August, you can see snowy conditions in northern BC, and that's what we saw. So it's totally possible. You don't want to be caught in something that can't handle the weather. So that's that 3-season versus 4-season. Then you got your shelter styles. You got dome tents, tunnel tents. The tunnel tent is what our Hillebergs are. The dome tents are going to be your classic, mech tent, teepees, wall tents. Pretty straightforward. So I've covered our mech tents, our Hilleberg, Garrett's Gafaru, wall tent. I just kind of scraped the surface of. But if I'm going to be, thinking about a really good lightweight backpacking tent for just me and maybe my dog, the MSR Hubba Hub is always one that's kind of been on my radar. Jesse and Tash from Filter Studios, we were doing some filming up in Alaska, and they both, I believe, had their own one-man MSR Hubba Hubba tent. And like, man, those are sweet. Because we were, it's really hard to explain what we were camping on. But basically it was these little tiny juts of earth that were sticking up above where the tide would come in. So probably not the safest thing to be doing, but it was kind of our only option. And we had like a very small amount of space. So I had the Nalo 2 GT, which took up quite a bit of room. And I mean, I found a spot. It wasn't a big deal. But those guys just set up their Hubba Hubbas and hucked them down in like 2 seconds. And I was like, damn, that's pretty sweet. And I was looking at these a few weeks ago at Sport Check. I kind of just was walking through the outdoor section as one does. And I saw them there, and I think they were on sale too. I can't remember how much they were. I think they were like $500 or something, which isn't that bad. And I couldn't believe the size of them. It was just, yeah, tiny compared to our Hilleberg tents. And I'm not comparing the two, but just size wise, because the tent is generally the thing that goes into my backpack. And I'm not complaining because Garrett and Kelly are usually bringing optics. So that's kind of the trade off there is I'm happy to bring the tent, the poles and all that stuff because those guys are probably carrying more weight with optics. But it just eats up so much damn room in the bottom of my pack. So something like a Hubba Hubba is going to really open up pack space and also obviously, lighten the load. There's a million other tents you can look at. I mean, there's Seek Outside tents, Stone Glacier, tons of different tents, and you don't need to get like a hunting specific brand. There's lots of great tents. So do your research. But again, I'm going to sort of harp on the fact that you can find good lightweight tents on Marketplace for a fraction of the price that you're going to buy them new. But you do want to make sure that they've been taken good care of and not put away wet or anything like that, which is what I'm going to get into next year. Tent care and maintenance. And I'm pretty anal about this to the point where my girlfriend kind of makes fun of me. But my slogan is "Dust is the enemy," which cracks her up. But it's true. You need to keep these things clean, take good care of them, keep them dry, and do everything to extend the life as much as possible. So again, dry it out as best as you can, not as best as you can. Let me rephrase that. Dry it out completely before you store it. So it's not always possible. Obviously, if you're packing up camp and it's raining, well, it's going to be wet. But as soon as you get home, even if you're dead ass tired and it's the last thing you want to do, pull that thing out and spread it out in your garage or your basement. For me, I always I put it out on my deck. I've got a nice big deck, but I am in a condo here, so I'm limited. But like I said, it's a pain in the ass, but it's something I always do, even if it's a bit damp. The last thing you want is a moldy, stinky tent. It's just going to fall apart and turn into a piece of shit, and you're going to have to buy a new one eventually. So super, super important to dry them out. So cleaning it, I bought just this little hand broom from Princess Auto. It's got a little wood handle and bristles on it. I don't bring that backpacking, obviously, but anytime I do any regular like car camping or, provincial park camping, that kind of thing, I always throw that into my bins. And I'm always kind of like using that, either one of the tents in between at some point. And that's always the perfect opportunity to take that hand broom. And I go through the whole thing, man, all of the seams inside and out, get all that dust out there along the zippers to a degree where I look like a maniac, but you got to keep that dust out there because that's what breaks down your zippers, your waterproofing, your seams. That dust is like sandpaper, man, and it's just going to slowly over time eat away at it and destroy it. So dust is the enemy. Remember that the next time you take down your tent. Reapplying waterproofing and seam seal, something we haven't done with the Hillebergs yet, even though we've used them a lot. You can see when the water beads up on the tent, and it's still doing that very well on the Hillebergs. It's like when you wax your vehicle and it rains and you get those nice, big beads of water on your hood. It's quite satisfying when you've got a newly waxed vehicle. Same thing for your tent. If you notice that beading has stopped, that's when you're going to want to reapply your waterproofing. And I got to look up on this, but I think there's like Nick Wax and Gear Aid, that type of stuff that you can wash into your tent. And washing the tents is something that I try and do every year. Pretty much, I think I have done it every year actually. And I know Kelly has done it as well. And it's a thing your girlfriend or your wife might not appreciate it, but you got to do it in your tub. and it ends up being a pretty dirty tub. But what I like to do is just soak it in water, nothing else. There was one time when I was a little bit paranoid that it didn't completely dry out. This goes back to making sure it's dry. After the moose hunt we did 2 years ago, and I brought it home. We actually didn't get rain. It was just kind of damp, and no, probably did get rain, but anyways, it was damp. And I put it out on my deck, and I think the weather down here was really damp and humid, and it just didn't fully dry out. And I remember bringing it out in the spring after that, and it just had that light tinge of like, that doesn't smell the way it should. And so what I did was I use unscented detergent on all of my clothes. I can't stand scented shit. Plus, you shouldn't be using that on your hunting gear, anyways. And I ran a little bit in that with the bathtub water, filled up the tub just enough to kind of submerge the entire tent in there. And I actually poured in a little bit of vinegar. Now, don't quote me on this. This was just something I thought was going to work. And let it soak in there. And I'm not talking a lot. I like maybe like a cup of vinegar, and just really kind of like, tumbled the tent in the bathtub, if that makes any sense. Kind of just hand washing it, not being aggressive with it or anything, and then let it soak for a while, and then sort of rinse and repeat. Literally, drain out all the water, hose it off. I filled it up again because I didn't want any of that. Obviously, vinegar is an acid. You don't want any of the residual left, and you don't want any soap left over either. So I filled it back up, rinsed it, drained it again, and I think I once again just hit it with the detachable shower head and made sure that it was completely free of any soap or anything like that. And when I set it up, it smelled just the way it should. So disaster averted on that one, I think. But that's just a little trick I came up with. But using just the tiniest little bit of laundry soap, I think is an okay thing to do. But again, don't quote me on that if you ruin your tent by doing that. But just go easy on it. And water is usually good enough. So that's what I'm going to do this year with both tents. I'm just going to fill up the tub, do them one at a time. Soak them in water, rinse them, and let them dry out on the deck. So that's all there is to it. Pain in the ass. It's going to make a mess in your bathtub, but that's all you need to do. So coming back to the Cadillac to wrap things up, I mean, all of this applies to your wall tent too. You're not going to want to put any of that stuff away. Pros and cons with the wall tent, and the wall tent is situational, and you're going to want to use this for like, the big group hunt with, you can treat it as a base camp if you want, but you're going to be coming back to this. The only way you're going to get it to where you want it is to drive it in. I know guys bring them out with horses too, because you can use like wood as your frame. I've seen cool setups for that guys have brought them in on pack horses. But if you're using all the poles and shit like that, there's a lot to it, and it's a lot of weight. So it requires a truck to get it out there. And you're basically going to spend the whole first day setting up camp, which honestly is kind of fun. And Garrett has got it down to a science. So we kind of just take direction from him. And, it doesn't take too long with 3 or 4 guys. And once you have it set up, man, and especially if you're going to stay somewhere for a week, I mean, it's just amazing. You got a spot to hang out. Garrett has like the sort of kitchen set up out front that's all covered, and then there's just more than enough room for cots and everyone to set up a lawn chair, liquor cabinet, and wood stove. And man, you're living the dream in that thing, especially in shitty weather. I think, I don't know, I'm trying to think. I think I've only been in the wall tent once, and that was extremely memorable. And I hope that we plan another hunt with that. And that's great when we get all the old guys out there too. If you want to get the kids out and have something comfortable to hang out in, wall tent is badass. They're obviously an investment. My dad and his buddies had a couple of wall tents. For them, they would set one up that was, sleeping quarters, and one was just for cooking and hanging out, which was pretty rad. But that's something I think most of you guys listening to are going to think about later in life, or something that you're definitely going to want to save up for. But all the cleaning and maintenance and stuff applies to those two, and that's something you're definitely going to want to take care of so it lasts a really long time. So like everything, not one single tent is going to fit every hunt. There's situations where we thought, oh man, I'd like to have this tent for this hunt or whatever. Like high wind situations. The TP didn't perform very well in some extreme weather conditions that we ran into last year, whereas the Hilleberg, totally fine. That's what they're built for. So, just knowing where your tent is going to thrive and where it is going to struggle is very important when planning a hunt. You also need to think about budget and what you can afford. Weight is a consideration, but, work with what you have for now. Split the load between you and two buddies if you can. And just go out there and have fun and slowly work your way up to something like a Hilleberg when you decide you're ready to do a sheep hunt or something where weather is going to be a concern and a shelter is going to be the thing that could seriously save your life. That's when you're going to want to put some extra money in there. But for guys that are weekend warriors or guys who are doing early season stuff, just about any tent is going to serve you well. So I think that's all I got on tents. If you guys have any questions or feedback on this, you can always reach out to us, info@theRookieHunter.com. I also noticed that you can leave comments and shit in Spotify. So I will check that on each episode. If you guys want to leave any comments there, I'll have a look periodically and respond to anything on here. Someone said congrats on our successful hunt, or it might have been my mule deer hunt. So thanks. I appreciate seeing that stuff. I also appreciate it when you guys leave us rating reviews, iTunes and stars and Spotify. So thank you guys. Please continue doing that, especially as we've kind of, reemerged, I guess. And I'm doing my very best to keep this on schedule as we move forward here. So appreciate you guys and hope you're still having a fantastic season. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.